but said there is modern slavery in football. Blatter says, I've never said Ronaldo is a slave. I have said slavery with young people, youngsters that European clubs are trying to get, 13, 14 and 15-year-old boys.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Diane Oxbury.
It's a mixed day today. If you're lucky, you won't see too many showers, but the cloud has started to build through the morning, and I think a few will be floating through the region from time to time. The downside is some of these will be heavy and they will be pretty sharp. In between them, there will be sunshine, but with a change in wind direction toward a southwesterly, it's cooler and fresher than recently. Best temperature anywhere, 21 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
I don't know, you can't get this stuff. Aye, all right. Good. Yeah. Yeah, a bit weird, isn't it? Bit weird. So Zeb Blatter, or whatever his name is, said, I never said that Ronaldo was a slave. I never said that at all. I might have mentioned he was a prat. Anyway, how are you? Good, so am I. Look, we need to know, Irene. We've all been up all night, Irene. That's a song. Irene, up all night, Irene. Irene, up all night. Irene, we've all been... Did you get it sorted with your router? Because we need to know. It's driving me balmy. It is. Driving me... Oh, it's all over my head. So, Irene, please, tell us. Did you get your router sorted? We need to know. It's pressing on all of our minds. And on the subject, I've had a lot of emails about computers. I'm not going to read them all out because, frankly, they said much the same thing. And I didn't understand it, but it sounded like they were saying the same thing, which is perhaps enough for the likes of me. Well, it felt like enough. Any road. But I did get this one off John in somewhere. He doesn't say where. And he says, I was having trouble with my computer, so I called Richard, the 11-year-old from next door, whose bedroom looks like mission control, and asked him to come over. Richard came over, clicked a couple of buttons, and solved the problem. As he was walking away, I said, so what was wrong? He said, it was just an ID10, an ID10T error. ID10T. I didn't want to appear stupid. So I just said, an ID10T error. All right. What's that? Just, in case an ID10T error occurs again and I have to sort of, fix it. He said, this is Richard. Have you not heard of an ID10T error before? No, I replied. Write it down, he said. I think you'll figure it out. So write it down, see if you figure it out. An ID10T error. Apparently they happen a lot in computers, even round here. Yeah. ID10T. I leave it with you. You must enjoy your life in whatever form it comes. So there you are. Deary me. 0161 228 2255 if you've got something to say. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And, of course, you can text on 07786 206 951. I must warn you that at some point during the course of the next couple of hours, probably sooner rather than later, I'm going to have a chat with Ian Cheeseman of our sports department. Apparently, Manchester City are taking part in a competition called the UEFA Cup. And the draw for the UEFA... I can't even say it. The draw for the UEFA Cup is about to be made. And when it is, we'll have a chat with Ian Cheeseman. Now, I'd be grateful if you could send me some questions on the internet, because I won't have a clue what to ask him on account of... I've not... Hang on a minute. Excuse me. I'm just talking to the producer. Excuse me. Did Manchester City play someone we've not heard of last night? Oh, is that what that was? Right. So Manchester City played presumably then they won. Yeah, OK. Manchester City played some numpties last night. and won. I don't know the score. Please don't tell me I don't care. 2-0? Oh, I do now. It was 2-0, apparently. And I think both of those were caused by their players kicking it in the wrong direction. I don't think Manchester City actually managed to kick it into the net. I think the opposition did it, the numpties did it. I don't know. I really don't. I may be being offensive to Manchester City, but I think they'll live with it. Yeah, except the slaves, who are down to the last 150,000 a week that they've got. But apart from that, they're all right. That Robbie Fowler was a slave, so much of a slave he bought 40 houses. Anyway, so Ian Cheeseman, who's our Manchester City reporter, he's going to come in and he's going to tell us who they're playing against. Now, how long that'll take, I don't know. But it could go on for hours. You know what they're like once you turn them on. But best, really, to get it over as quick as we can. Anyway, once we know, once he knows, we'll know, and we'll do all that stuff. It'll all make sense. No, it will. It will. It will. No, if I keep telling myself it, I might believe it. That's the theory I'm going on. Alan, says Kevin, I am convinced that you make statements just to provoke a response. Surely not. And it's worked again this time. Your comments on personal hygiene yesterday I took to be your idea of humour. Siding with the great unwashed can only be a joke. I agree that the overuse of stink juice on men is off-putting, but not the smell of soap, surely. I'm sure Mrs. B would have something to say if you went more than 24 hours without washing behind your ears. Although I bet your mother, as mine did 40-odd years ago, probably only checked them once a week or so. And when the knit nurse was due to visit school because hot water was only available in other people's houses in those days. A stand-up all-over wash in the scullery once a week was all we expected to have. I shudder to think how long I wore the same pair of underpants before changing them when I was a kid, says Kevin. It amazes me these days how so many people can afford to drink and smoke, yet are apparently unable to afford a bar of soap. And they wonder why some of us refuse to use public transport. Once I get a nose full of somebody's BO, it sticks in me nose all day. I'd rather suffer second-hand smoke from a smoker than the stink of some of the unwashed nether regions. Even if the soap dodgers are afraid of detergent, they could buy a set of new clean clothes from one of the cheaper shops for the price of a packet of fags. Bring back the smokers and ban the unwashed is what I say. Regards, Kevin. P.S. Of course, I would never make a statement just to provoke a response. Would you not? Oh, you're missing out. 0161 228 2255. Dave in Arparay. Hiya, Dave.
Hiya, Alan. How's it going?
It depends what it is, but life's not bad. What can I do for you?
I was just responding to the phone call you had yesterday regarding the Irish fellas going onto land, and you were saying that it's their home, so they can pretty much do what they want on the land. So the courts managed to evict them after God knows how long.
It's not quite what I said, but it's close enough, so we'll roll with it. Go on.
Right, OK. Well, it was just down at the bottom of Lightbourne Road, I don't know if it in Lightbourne area, there's a bunch of us who use the JCB to ram the gates off some private land, believed to be owned by the railway, and then they parked on there, and you want to see the state of the land. So it's just, you know, if we did that, we'd be arrested, surely, for criminal damage.
Well, they also, if there is evidence, should be arrested thus. Because to break in is a criminal offence.
Right, then it gets on to me that if you look, they've all got new vehicles, new caravans.
Well, that's an entirely separate issue.
No, but I mean, are they then taxed and insured? You have to be.
I don't know the answer to that question, are they taxed and insured? I don't have any way of finding out other than going and inspecting the vehicle and asking to see their insurance, so I don't know. But when a crime is committed, the police ought to act. Now, we know we've got quite a lot of misdirection of police resources these days, but if travellers, or anybody else for that matter, breaks open the lock, they're guilty of criminal damage to the lock, if nothing else. Mm. But if they occupy land residentially, they are not immediately evictable. There are legal procedures that have to be followed.
But don't you think after the damage they do to the land, no, because they move from site to site around Manchester, there's lots of sites around Manchester where you see they've left and the council's got to spend thousands to clear the land up. Surely there should be immediate things they can do and say, look, you go on one land, when you leave, if we evict you, they're responsible for clearing the land. Maybe take, if they can't afford to pay it, maybe take the Mercedes they're driving off them to pay for the clean-up.
Well, first of all, whose Mercedes do you take? Do you take the Mercedes of the bloke called Charlie, when you can't prove that it was Charlie that did the damage? It might have been Henry that did the damage, and you take Charlie's Mercedes. Much as you would like it, we really don't want a system in our country where the police or some other authority says, we don't know which one of you did it, but we're going to punish that one.
All right, well, can they do it as a collective then? So you're all responsible because you're all sharing the land?
Well, they probably could do it as a collective, but they'd have to bring them all to court, and possibly that's not the way forward. That's just very, very expensive to do. It's cheaper to clean up.
Well, it's just, as a taxpayer of Manchester City Council, I see that they're wasting, spending thousands to clear up.
Well, what could happen instead is that local authorities could provide satisfactory places for enough travellers who want to use them. That would be a novel idea, wouldn't it?
It would be, as long as they obviously kept it clean and tidy and it didn't affect, the neighbourhood of... If you've got an house, and especially if it's, a nice house and you're retired and you get a traveller site right next to your house, I suppose you won't be too happy with the value.
Well, one's got to put it somewhere, rather like you have to have electricity pylons somewhere. I mean, I'm afraid in our society we can't say to somebody, oh, we're not going to do that because the value of your house will diminish. Otherwise, no one would have houses to live in, because I promise you, if you've got a bit of green land at the bottom of your garden and some building company decides to build homes for the poor on there, or indeed homes for the rich, you're going to say, I don't want them here because it's going to devalue my house. Oh, well, they can have nowhere to live then.
Right, so we need to find somewhere where they can live safely.
Somewhere where they can live safely, yeah.
Christmas Island in the Pacific.
Well, yeah, but it's a bugger to get a caravan oversea. But why don't we send you there? Because if you're in Christmas Island in the Pacific, you won't be bothered by them.
Well...
no, you're all in favour. Toby, Toby, who's he? Never heard of him. Dave, you're all in favour of punishing one individual for the sins of the collective, so there is our solution. The way we stop worrying about travellers, because Dave's the one doing the worrying, is send Dave to Christmas Island. Off you go and pack your bag. Have a good day, Dave.
Yeah, thank you, Alan.
Cheers, mate. 0161 228 2255, or of course Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and you can text on 07786 206 951. Sometimes newspapers ought to be in CinemaScope. I've got a copy of the Sun newspaper in front of me, and there's a jumbo on the front. She's known as Tragic Georgia. The only exercise she ever gets, apparently, is chewing. Britain's fastest... Sorry, not fastest, unless she fell downhill. By God, she'd pick her speed up then. No. Her fattest teenager has been warned, lose 20 stones or die. Desperate Georgia Davis of Aberdare... or as it's now known, of 9 Burgers, of Aberdare, weighs 33 stone at the age of 15. I'm sorry. Parents should be jailed. They should be locked up. They should. It's their job. It's their job. It's not my job. It's not even the job of the Sun newspaper. They haven't got a job. It's food addict. She's not a food addict. She's just a greedy little pig. Food addict Georgia Davis told last night how eating is as deadly as heroin for her. Well, stop doing it then, you fat cow. And has driven her weight to a life-threatening 33 stone at 15. There is a solution. I've mentioned it before. You lock her in a room and you push a piece of lettuce under the door every 3 days, whether she needs it or not. That's it. You're fat because you eat more than you use. You eat more than you use because the only exercise you get is chewing. There is no excuse for being fat, said Tubby Beswick. 12 on BBC Radio Manchester. The news headlines with Faye Rusco.
A court in Cyprus has cleared 9 British soldiers, including 4 from Greater Manchester, of starting a mass brawl in the resort of Ayia Napa. A laptop containing confidential patient information has been stolen from a hospital in Stockport. And Hello magazine says it's secured a multi-million-pound deal for the first photos of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie's newborn twins. Manchester's weather, sunshine and showers today, feeling fresher, highs of 21 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Much better news now on the M6. I'm pleased to say traffic's easing around the Kiel services on the southbound and on the northbound carriageway after an earlier accident. We did have problems as well on the southbound between Lymm and Holmes Chapel, between junction 20 for Lymm and 18 for Holmes Chapel. That has also started to ease off and return to normal now. We've still got congestion though in the centre of Manchester, all because of the partial closure of Deansgate while water main work continues. John Dalton Street and Mount Street are particularly affected, so if you're travelling around Albert Square, I'm afraid you are going to meet up with some queues still. If you want to update us, calling on 0161 244 4951. I'm Maria Jackson.
Decongesting Manchester, one car at a time. 2020 traffic.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Teddy Mostyn says, if you send me to Australia, the travellers can have my house. Ted, they don't want an house. The travellers, they don't want an house. They want something mobile. I'm making a presumption, yeah? You might actually live in a caravan and just call it your house, but I don't think you do. So they don't want your house, they want to travel. They want to go from one place to another from time to time and then stay for a little while. On the face of it, it's a perfectly reasonable lifestyle. It doesn't quite fit in with yours and my general view of how society should work, does it? But surely the great thing about British society is we are able to accommodate difference. We don't want to be like automatons, do we? We don't want to all live the same way, have exactly the same lifestyle. If we did, of course, we'd have the right one, which would be identical to mine, surprisingly. So, no, it's a good thing that we have different lifestyles within our society, and we ought to be able to accommodate travellers. Mary in Beswick. Hiya, Mary.
Hi, Alan.
What can we do for you?
That ID 10T that you mentioned before
yes, the ID.
Reminded me of a friend who'd bought her first car, and she phoned me up and she said, I've got this car, it's beautiful, blah, blah, blah. I said, must come and see it. I said, yeah, I'd love to come and see it. What kind of car is it? So she said, it's an OR 10N. I thought, what the hell's that? Anyway, I goes round after tea to have a look at the car, and it turned out to be a Ford Orion. Honestly.
Oh, fabulous. Fabulous. oh, that's an end we like. Thank you very much indeed. Have a good day, Mary.
And you, bye.
Alan, your listener said next door's 11-year-old's bedroom looked like Mission Control. How did he know? Oh, very good. Yes. Well, you may be friends with him. It's perfectly reasonable. People have friends, don't they? 0161 228 2255. I couldn't tell from what you said whether you'd sussed that ID 10T equals... Oh, Alan, I had. In fact, I didn't have to suss it. Our earlier communicant... Oh, that's very good, then, communicant. Yeah. That doesn't mean you're taking the Blessed Sacrament, does it? Anyway, our earlier correspondent actually typed it out for me, which helped a great deal. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have got it. You may be right. I've not really looked at the papers much today. I've seen Jumbo, obviously, but apart from that, I've not looked at the papers much. No. And I've not really missed much. The front pages are a bit tedious, apart from, as I say, Britain's fattest teen, 33 stone at 15 years of age. Also, on the front page of the Manchester News, People's Champion dies after abuse from a teenager. A highly respected community champion collapsed and died of a heart attack after being verbally abused by a teenager. Frank Humphreys had gone to help an elderly neighbour with whom the teenager was arguing. The youth swore at him before the boy's older brother arrived and intervened. But as he turned to walk back to his flat in Middleton, he collapsed on a stairwell and slumped to the ground. He died later in hospital. OK, fair enough. So, I know what's being implied here. They're being implied that there was cause and effect, but you can't really make that case. One happened, the other happened afterwards. Times front page, fuel firms face threat of windfall profits tax. Do you think they should? Do you think the energy firms should get a windfall profits tax? They should just... It's been done before. I think it's been done once before. So they make huge, unexpected profits. Fine. There you are with a dirty, great big profit. Along comes the Chancellor and takes that profit from you in the form of a windfall tax. I think it was the oil companies that were done last time, which presumably would be included in this. Daily Mail, same story on the front page, call for a windfall tax on energy giants. Ministers are considering a windfall tax after the big three made combined profits of £15.6 billion. Yeah, I know. £15.6 billion. Soaring bills have allowed Shell, BP and Centrica, which owns British Gas, to make £1,000 a second for the first 6 months of the year, a figure described as grotesque. Unless, of course, you happen to be a shareholder in that company, or any of those three. The Independent front page, the day of reckoning. Radovan Karadzic faced justice yesterday in The Hague, accused of genocide, war crimes and crimes against humanity. He was also accused of the shelling of Sarajevo, killing 10,000 civilians, and indeed organising the massacre of up to 8,000 men and boys in Srebrenica. Ethnic cleansing and the destruction of religious sites in Bosnia was also cited. But just this morning, about 20 minutes ago, Karadzic spoke in court saying that he cannot perceive of a situation where he would get a fair trial. Dead straightforward. 01612282255 if you've something to say. Sounds easy, because we like to make it easy. Front page of the Daily Mirror, Lotto rapist's new love. Remember him? Yeah. I can never pronounce his first name. I bet he can't. Arworth? How do you say it? You might know. It's a fellow whose second name is Hoare, which is perhaps a bit unfortunate, but lotto rapist Arworth Hoare has a new love. The ex-wife of a policeman. Millionaire Hoare, who spent 16 years in jail after a series of sickening sex attacks, claims he began seeing the woman, Karen Cameron, as she's named here, after she posted him a note asking for a date. Some women are balmy, aren't they, really? I mean, why would you... We as grown-ups actually feel that perhaps we shouldn't really form relationships on the basis of looks. You've got to go on something rather more than looks. Smell, taste, personality, brain, whatever. But just looks, it's not enough. Why would you ask somebody for a date on the basis of their looks when the only other information you have about them is that they are a convicted, violent rapist? What do you mean? Because he's got £6 million? Surely that can't have a bearing. Edith in Whitefield, how are you doing?
Love.
Hello, Edith.
Yes, it's just a short question, love. Can you get sight of a will? And where do you apply?
Do you mean when the person's still alive?
No.
Or after their death?
Death.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, there is a process by which you can see the will.
Yes.
It's not a quick process in that you can't see it the day after the death.
No, I understand.
But yes, wills are registered with the authorities. Why do you want to see it?
Well, we want to know where the money has gone. It's just it's a man and wife, but they both died.
Right.
Yes.
And the reason I'm asking is why you want to see it? You're just out of interest?
It's my daughter that wanted to see it. Yes.
And does your daughter think that she may have been in it and not got the money, or?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, but yes.
Now, what leads her to believe that she might have been in it?
Well, she was with the person, the husband, when she was young, quite younger. And
What do you mean she was with him when she was quite younger? They were a couple?
No.
I see. Okay.
No, it was just neighbours. They were neighbours.
Right.
And they took a fancy to her, like, you know. And she told me the story that she went with him to the bank, the TSB bank.
Yeah, well, don't give me any more names, but carry on. Yeah.
Yes, but it's gone now, that bank.
Well...
So, and it was a conversation he had with the person at the bank. And, you know...
So your daughter believes that she was mentioned in this man's will?
Well, he gave her the impression that...
Okay, so that's what she believes.
She just wants to know...
Now, well, was the man married at that time?
Yes.
He was?
Well, yes.
Well, you seem to have some doubt then, just for a minute.
Oh, no, yes, they were married, but they both of them thought a lot about her.
No, I'm just... Right. The reason I'm asking is that a will ceases to be valid after somebody gets married. You have to make a new one. Well, there is a register of wills in the National Archive, so you can see...
Yes.
First of all, you can see some very old wills, obviously, in the National Archive.
Yes.
But also, if she gets in touch with the Citizens Advice Bureau, they'll give the address of the local place where a will can be seen.
Yes.
Now, how long ago did the person die?
Oh, it's a good few years.
Okay.
Maybe 10 years, something like that.
Well, it might well be too late to do anything about it, even if...
You just want to satisfy yourself, you know.
Okay, well, that's fine. Well, in that case, if she gets in touch with the probate office, they'll tell her where that will is filed.
Yes.
So that she can see it.
Yes.
All right?
The probate office.
Probate.
Probate, yes,
probate
right.
office. Okay.
Right. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yes,
have a good day. 0161228 2225. I always listen to your programme, says Wendy, and enjoy it, but the best bits for me are your harangues. They are nice, aren't they? I'm quite proud of them. Oh, that's not a code word, okay. You make me laugh, she says, it's a bit worrying. Today, the lettuce under the door did it for me. It'd do it for Fatty as well. A very good day to you. Please keep on going balmy. I'm not going balmy. I've been there years. 01612282255. Alan in Crumpsall. Hi, Alan.
Hello, mate, all right.
I'm not bad at all, thank you.
But as a matter of fact, I've noticed over the past years that people are going fatter, aren't they? They are going very fat.
Yeah.
Well, what's happening?
Well, they're eating more and doing less, without a doubt.
Ooh, I don't know. Fatties, you're right there anyway. I've got a problem here. I think it's a universal problem with everyone who's died, who's got gravestones, who care for them, who buy gravestones. My dad passed away nearly 12 months ago, so I paid for the funeral. It was quite a few quid, 3,200, and I got a nice coffin and everything. That was nearly 1,000. So that was it. The funeral come and went. So I decided to have his inscription put on the original stone, which I've got. My granny's in the same grave, but there's room for his inscription on it. And it's just, the gravestone is Italian white marble, and it's solid as a rock because there's a new scheme come out now. I phoned a memorial firm up, and without even seeing it, said, they've got to come out now for safety and put a steel anchorage system on it. It cost them like £500 plus the inscription. I said, what? He said, yeah, it's a new old cemeteries now. We're talking about Blakely Cemetery now. He said, old cemeteries now, if the stone's unsafe, it's got to come out. And it's got to have a lot of work put on it and reinterred. So I said, my stone, yeah. I said, I understand that. But our stone's only like, the majority up there, they're only about 2 foot tall, that's all, yeah, and they're about 2 foot down below. And mine is solid as a rock, Alan. It's solid as a rock. And it's even got an headstone parallel to it, almost pressed against it. But they said it's got to come out. And I've got to find out all that money for £500 plus the price of the inscription. And it's happening all over the place, apparently.
It is happening all over the place. The problem is local authorities have suddenly got very afraid that gravestones might fall. And I know that you say it's as solid as a rock, but unfortunately it won't remain thus. They don't, particularly tall, heavy ones, because what happens is, as the land moves and cemeteries, believe it or not, are quite agile in terms of land. As the land moves, then the gravestone supports, as it were, the foundations get disturbed and they tilt, and you've only got to walk into a graveyard and have a look and you'll see they're all leaning over all over the place, right, higgledy-piggledy. And the local authorities are afraid that they'll get a claim if one of those stones falls on somebody. So they're saying to the owners of the stone, get it sorted.
So, I know there's a few up here in Place Image. There's loads over the past few years. We've had loads of people going in being buried, and there's one or two falling over the end one, which I think someone shoved them over actually. But I had my grandstone cleaned, with it being like Italian white marble. They go very dingy, and it was about 5 years ago, and it's actually re-cemented in, and. I'm physically I can't shove it over now.
Well, okay, it's re-cemented in, but at the risk of being daft, what's the cement fixed to?
Well, it is the obviously it's got to be the ground, hasn't it? That's
it
all
has
it is.
indeed, and if the
solid,
and if the ground moves, what happens next?
Well, I understand what you mean about moving of ground now, but it's solid. It's just solid.
Well, yes, it's solid, but they were all solid when they put them in. Nobody puts in a wobbly gravestone. When you go in, I mean, I bet when you went to the bloke, he said, "You want white marble?" "Yeah, I do. I want white marble." "Do you want it wobbly? Do you want it stable?" "Oh, I'll have it stable, thanks. I've seen them wobbly ones. They're not very good." And they become wobbly. So they are. The authorities are starting to say that they want them anchored in a particular way that they think will be safer. Frankly, to be perfectly honest, I don't know why anyone wants a gravestone. I don't see the point of it. But that's not the issue. I'm not asking people to live the world according to me. But if you're going to have one, the local authority wants some kind of assurance that it will remain secure.
Well, there's something in the flying the ointment here, though. What it is, you see, everything's hunky-dory. They know themselves more or less all solid, but this comes out when you want to put an extra inscription on the stone. Otherwise, they're not bothering about that. When you want another inscription put on that stone, which you've got to have, you can't leave it bare with it. I've got to put my dad's name on it, else he's in my own marked grave. This only comes out when you get the ball rolling, saying when you ring your memorial firms up.
Well,
saying,
what they're doing is they're doing nothing until you make contact with them
correct.
And saying we want to do this, and then they say, well, why you're here. If you want to do that, you're going to take responsibility for the stone, and when you take responsibility for the stone, these are the requirements.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They just won't do it otherwise.
What do you think they should do? Just leave it? Let you do anything you want?
Well, is that... Alan, I've been there many times. It's as solid as a rock. I just want the inscriptions putting on it, else otherwise they're not bothering.
I didn't ask you what you want doing, because you've told me that. You've told me what you don't want doing. I'm asking you now, what do you think the council should do to protect themselves against the claim when a gravestone falls and lands on somebody? What do you think they should do?
Well, I don't know. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. It's as solid as a tree. I don't know what
and trees don't fall down, do they?
Yeah, well, if it was wobbly, it's fair enough.
But what are they to do? Wait until it's wobbly and then mend it themselves?
Well, they certainly won't do that. No, it's just that... The reason why I'm going to get the fair trading anyway. If you get that telephone number, this must be happening to thousands of people.
It is
now.
happening to thousands of people. I can tell you that unequivocally.
Oh.
It is. It's happening all over the place.
And there's nothing said at all till you want some work doing on that stone. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to put my own inscriptions on it, Alan, because I've even asked sign writers. There's no response off them. And I know the cemetery's getting a big cut off this work. I don't know if it's £40 or £50 fee that they want off the memorial firm. And I said to one of them, without even seeing it, he said he wants to do it. I said, what? How do you actually do this job? He said, it's like drilled. The stone's actually drilled with steel and plinth at the top. I said, well, what happens if the stone splits? I said, does that ever happen? He said, well, sometimes it does.
It does happen, yeah. It does.
I said, well, what do you do about that? I said, well, we'll replace your stone for you.
It's jolly decent of him. Why not just leave well alone and keep in your mind that you know your mum's dead? 0161 228 2255. Good on you, Alan. It's 20 to 1. Time for the BBC GMR News headlines with Anna Dawson.
Wigan and Lee NHS Trust is investigating after a toddler was left screaming in pain when doctors failed to spot his broken collarbone. Injuries inflicted by gun and knife crime are costing the NHS more than £3 million a year. That's according to experts in Manchester. And the bottlenose whale, which was stranded on mudflats in Hampshire, has been refloated by the high tide. Rescue crews say if it beaches again, it may have to be put down. Manchester's weather, sunshine and showers today, feeling fresher, highs of 21 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Well, traffic had started to ease on the southbound carriageway between junction 20 for Lim and 18 for Holmes Chapel after an earlier accident, but it is now starting to look slow between the Croft Interchange junction 21A and junction 20 for Lim. Nothing untoward there, just seems to be the sheer weight of traffic really using that stretch of the motorway. Other than that, we're not actually doing too badly on the motorway. The M602 flowing nicely in and out of Manchester city centre. The M60 coping fine as well. We have still got this congestion though in the centre of Manchester because of the partial closure of Deansgate while water main work continues. John Dalton Street and Mount Street are particularly affected. Quite a bit of congestion to contend with there. If you want to update us, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Maria Jackson.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
Good afternoon. Well, firstly, let's start with the cricket. England have had a remarkable first session on day 3 of the third test with South Africa at Edgbaston. The tourists, who of course started the day on 256 for 6, they've been bowled out for just 314. Lancashire's Andrew Flintoff was very much the man of the moment yesterday, and his county teammate James Anderson has been at the heart of the attack today. He got the wickets of Boucher and Morkel. Ryan Sidebottom removed Nell and Prince. So as it stands, South Africa have a first innings lead of 83 runs, but there's some pretty horrendous rain clouds hovering over Birmingham as we speak, and Michael Vaughan's men might have to wait just a little bit longer to start their second innings. Forget about the cricket, because more importantly, the balls have been spinning round in Nyon, Switzerland. The draw for the second qualifying round of the UEFA Cup has been made, and Manchester City will play FC Midtjylland. I think that's how you say it. Of Denmark. We've got someone here who's got a better pronunciation. The first leg is at home on the 14th of August, and the second leg being played on the 28th. Well, our City reporter Ian Cheeseman is with me now. He's got about 16 pieces of paper in front of him. He's already booked his flights, and he's got a smile on his face. For Ian, what do you know about them?
Well, I know one thing. I think they're going to be a difficult team to beat. They were runners-up in the Danish League last season, a tougher side perhaps than the side that City played, EB Stremor, in the last round. Their squad is a mixture of Danish players. They've got 1 or 2 Nigerians in there. One of them is called Yakubu, but it's not the one that you're thinking of. I don't know the official pronunciation of the name yet, but as I understand it, it's something like Mid-Thailand, which is not actually a million miles away from being very appropriate. The town that they're from is actually called Herning. It's in the centre of the Jutland Peninsula of Denmark, which means it's going to be a little bit tricky to get to. I'm not so sure whether you'll need to go there by trawler, but certainly it's going to be difficult to access. It's a small town for around 45,000 population, the same size, ironically, as the Faroe Islands, and it's somewhat of a spa town, a health town for people who want to go there. Whether it'll be very healthy when the City fans go out there, I'm not so sure. Perhaps most importantly, from a travelling supporters point of view, is that the stadium has a capacity of around 12,000. It's a relatively new club, only being founded in 1999, and they went through against Bangor City in the first round of the competition, winning 6-1 in the first leg in Wales, and then winning 4-0 again in the second leg. So they've got a few goals about them. I don't think they're going to be quite as easy to beat as EB Stremor in the last round.
Do you need any more information than that? You heard it here first on BBC Radio Manchester. There, Ian Cheeseman, our City reporter, who, as I said, has already booked his flights, and he's got his hat and his scarf ready. So, City's European tour continues, but looking a little closer to home, Blues boss Mark Hughes feels his side will be ready for the start of the Premier League season, and says new signing Tel Ben Haim could be involved in Saturday's friendly against Stockport.
We've added Tel Ben Haim, which we're delighted about, so he will come into the equation. Certainly at the weekend we'll try and get some game time into him. So, yeah, things are starting to move in the right direction. Come the 17th of August, we'll be ready.
Also today, the draw for the third qualifying round of the Champions League was first made before the UEFA Cup draw. Liverpool face Standard Liège, Arsenal play Steve McLaren's FC Twente, and Rangers, they take on either Ilberg or Madrika. Well, FIFA President Sepp Blatter says he's been misquoted in likening Manchester United's Cristiano Ronaldo to a slave, but said there is modern slavery in football. Well, Blatter says, I've never said that Ronaldo is a slave. I said slavery with young people, youngsters that European clubs are trying to get, 13, 14 and 15-year-old boys. Well, Wigan's new signing Amir Zaki is set to make his debut in tomorrow's friendly at Sheffield Wednesday. The Egyptian striker has been given international clearance and is likely to partner Emil Heskey up front. Bolton's pre-season plans continue this evening. They take on Doncaster Rovers. In Rugby League, Wigan coach Brian Noble says there's no need to panic, despite the Warriors losing their last 3 matches. They face Hull at the JJB this evening.
Our fans, some of them react, and I can understand their reactions. It looks gutless when you see things like that. There's no other way of shaping it up. But I know that we don't have gutless people. If you lose the next 5 games, you know, you don't panic. You have to find a response, and you have to find a reason to do the things that we've been doing on and off quite successfully this year.
Well, we'll have full match commentary of Wigan's game against Hull right here on BBC Radio Manchester in Manchester Sports from 7 o'clock this evening. And finally, Manchester Phoenix player coach Tony Hand has announced he will carry on playing this season. Hand will be 41 later this month and says the bottom line is, I still love playing the game and believe I can contribute.
This is the Northwest's biggest sports station. This is BBC Radio Manchester. No one covers more of Manchester sports.
Champions of Europe for the 3rd time.
Football, rugby league, rugby union, boxing, speedway, cricket, athletics, ice hockey. The all-new Manchester sports. Coming soon to the Northwest's biggest sports station. BBC Radio Manchester.
Marvellous. The good news is I won't have to talk to Cheeseman now, because Ian's already talked to Will, and Will understood what he was saying. And you probably did as well, but I wouldn't have done. Just for the record, an email, actually a text, I'm sorry, a text from someone whose name I've not got, but it doesn't matter. You can view a will. It'll cost you about £5, according to this information. So, Edith, you can view a will by getting in touch with the York Probate Sub-Registry, which surprisingly is in York. And, well, I'm not going to give you the address because you can't go writing addresses down as quickly as that. But there are probate registers about the place. If you get in touch with the one, there is one in Manchester, you get in touch with one in Manchester, they may be able to help you. It possibly depends, I don't know this, but it possibly depends on where the will or where probate was granted. 0161228 2255, Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and you can text on 07786 206 951. Paul in Salford. Hiya, Paul.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
First of all, before we say anything, I'd just like to congratulate you on an excellent talk programme.
It's always a bad start, that. Go on, where are we going now?
Right. What I'd like to talk about is people who've made citizens' arrests, and for the trouble, they've come unstuck legally. I think it's a bad state of affairs. I can refer back to a case a couple of weeks ago. It was in the papers. I've actually forgot the guy's name, but it was on public transport, and this thug was harassing a person or persons on this public transport, and he decided to do something about it. And within the course of him detaining this individual, he deemed it necessary, within his reasonable force, to deliver a slap. And, of course, the police came along, arrested the thug, and also arrested him. I think it's a sorry state of affairs, especially in this day and age, you know, when there's that much crime being committed. What's your opinion on that?
Well, before I express any kind of opinion, I'll ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you any evidence, and that's a harsh way of putting it, if you like, a demanding way of putting it, but are you aware of anyone who has actually been prosecuted in the circumstances you just described?
No, sir.
No.
That's a very good question.
It is a good question.
Whether this person was prosecuted, I don't think so.
No, I don't either. I don't remember that specific case, but there are dozens and dozens of them all over the country every week. And a prosecution of such an individual is extremely rare. I'm not aware of one in the past 12 months. Maybe others will come on and put me right.
Yes,
well, that leaves us with another thought, and it's not a comfortable one, but the thought is this. Do you want to give people carte blanche? Now, please answer the specific question rather than the one you think you might be hearing. Do you think people should be given carte blanche to do whatever they feel to stop somebody attacking another or abusing another or doing vandalism or even a robbery? Do you think they should be entitled to do whatever they feel?
No, sir.
No. So you think, your thought is, that they should only ever do that which is required, reasonable?
Well, that's exactly right, sir.
Who should decide that?
Right, OK.
Who should decide that?
We've always had power of arrest going back to Oliver Twist's time, Stop Thief. Now, back in 1984, along came the Police and Criminal Evidence Act.
It did. PACE, yeah.
PACE, right. And a section of PACE, Section 24 PACE, entitled any person to arrest any person who they know have committed an arrestable offence. Or they have reasonable grounds to suspect.
That's more like it. Go on anyway.
Where an arrestable offence has been committed, any person may arrest without a warrant any person whom they have reasonable grounds for suspecting to be guilty of it.
Yes.
However, this guy is on this public transport. He's seen.
But hang on a minute.
Yes,
You're not addressing the question I put to you. I don't blame you because it's a tough one.
It's a tough one, yeah.
But you've agreed, and you were about to recite again the circumstances of that case, and I suspect would have said again that that man deemed himself that he'd used only reasonable force. My question...
That's what he said, yeah.
Well, of course. My question is, given that you believe... Remember, I've not given a view yet. We're still working on yours.
Yes,
given that you believe a person should not be given carte blanche to use whatever force they feel like, the only force they should be permitted to use is reasonable force. We're still agreeing here, aren't we?
Yes, of course, yes.
I come back to my question. Who should decide what is reasonable and what is not? Who would you have as the authority or the individual? Who?
The first reasonable people who turn up being the police, and the second reasonable people, the witnesses, if any.
What does that mean? That means nothing. The police can't decide whether reasonable force was used.
Because they weren't there,
They weren't there.
Yeah,
the only people who were present, only people who were present are the witnesses.
Of course,
Now, again, what are the police to do? Are they to choose which witnesses to believe?
Yeah, I can see where you're coming.
It's a problem,
exactly
isn't it?
right. Yeah.
I see you walking down the street with an old lady. I walk up behind you, I smack you on the head, push you to the floor, and pinion you to the floor. I then get the police on my mobile, and I say, well, he was beating up the old lady. Well, obviously, she's going to say, no, he wasn't. Do all of that, dead easy. Dead easy. But who would you have decide?
That's a very, very difficult question. You'd have to decide on what evidence you was given by any witnesses.
Who? Oh, hang on. Who? Remember, my question wasn't what decision should be made. My question was, who should decide? Who do you want to decide in that situation? The bloke doing the slapping? Well, that's the bloke we're deciding about. The bloke who got slapped, he's going to have a very tarnished view of it. The witnesses, well, yes, all those people should be involved. All those people should be involved. But who should decide?
That's not a bad question.
It's a cracker, because it comes to the nub of it. What is reasonable force?
Reasonable force is whatever force was necessary at the time to...
No. Whatever force was reasonable. Greatest judge this country's ever seen, some say, Lord Justice Denning, when asked in court what was a reasonable act, he said, listen to this for gobbledygook, he said, a reasonable act is an act which is deemed to be reasonable in all the circumstances pertaining to the event.
At the time,
Pertaining to the event. You don't need at the time. It's tautologous. So that's what he said. Now, who decides? And that's the problem. The police arrive, and they have a melee. Now, if the bloke has managed to arrest, then they have a bloke who's won and a bloke who's lost.
Yeah, of course.
Who do they believe? So they take them both in, sort out who they believe, sort out who they think is in the wrong, and let the other one go, which is precisely what happens up and down the street every single week.
Apart from the fact that up and down the street every single week, you don't get people who are going to put themselves out to make an arrest.
Well, you see, the problem here is that the media take hold of cases like the one you described, and they report it to you. It's usually the print media, and usually the tabloid print media at that. And they say
it was a tabloid.
Well, that was always going to be a lucky guess, wasn't it? Given the number of people who read tabloids and the number of people who read broadsheets. But the media get hold of it. The tabloid media get hold of it and say, "Poor Jimmy saves the lady's life and ends up getting arrested." Well, okay, but who's going to decide? If not the police, who?
It's a difficult one, isn't it?
It's a nightmare. I don't know how we change that. I don't know. We could go for the American system, where the guilty one's the dead one, and just let everyone carry guns.
Anyway, you're obviously a very intelligent guy.
I wouldn't go that far. If you listen to Rick in Bolton, who's just sent me a text, he has an entirely different view. He describes me as a fat little pillock who's selfish and thinks of only me. It's hard to argue with a bugger, isn't it? Thank you very much. Have a good day, Paul. Sheila in Fallowfield. Hiya, Sheila.
Alan.
What can we do for you?
This girl, this 50, what is she, 30-odd stone?
She is indeed.
Right. Have you read all about it?
I've read quite a lot. I had to have a snack in the middle.
Bring you this to your attention. Her mother says, fighting back tears, as a baby, Georgia wouldn't keep down normal milk, so I gave her condensed milk.
That went down well.
She spit out her baby food. I've had 4 of mine, and mine all spit mine out, but they ate it eventually. So I gave her things like tin potatoes.
Yeah.
And then she says, we didn't have much money, so it was a case of filling up with food we could afford. Now, going to a shop and getting a handful of potatoes from the green grocers is a blooming sight cheaper than buying a tin of potatoes. And then she said, when her father died, we'd come for tea. Then when her father died, we would come for eat together. And, you know... And
it doesn't bear examination, does it?
It really does. And here it says, Georgia will fly out to the US Wellspring Camp on September the 1st. Who's paying for it?
I've no idea. Hopefully not me.
I bet it's us, Alan. I'll bet you a pound to a penny. It says, what, giving a baby condensed milk?
I know. The problem here is...
Honest to God, it beggars
I know, but the problem here is, let us assume that is true. I don't know whether it's true or not, but let us assume that is true.
Right.
All right, so there it is. We say it's true. She gave the baby condensed milk, and the baby got big.
Right.
Now, the next time the kid's dragged along to the doctor should say, by Jove, that's a big un.
Yeah.
You ought to be feeding that less. And she said, well, I'm not giving her much. I give her 3 tins of condensed milk a day. That's not a lot. And the doctor says, well, actually, condensed milk's probably not the right thing. Part of it is bad education, and by that I don't mean they've not got O-levels and A-levels.
No,
I mean
I
education in life. But part of it is poor education.
And common sense.
And common sense.
I mean,
that's a lot
I've
easier.
had 4, and mine spit out the milk, and I've got covered in dinner and everything. But you've just got to persevere. You don't, they don't like the milk, so I'll give them condensed
Well,
milk.
we're back to where we were, where we have been so many other times, and that is, parents these days think, oh, my child doesn't like me, I must do something to make the child like me. And of course, that's not the job. If your child doesn't like you, well, hard luck. It will eventually, in fact, it might come round to respecting you. But let's not be too hopeful, eh?
Join me, Mike Shaft, as we hear about the work of the Catholic Children's Rescue Society this Sunday from 7.
Just for the record, a pillock is a small fish. So I'm a fat little small fish. And himself fish. It's very good. Toss it.
95.1 FM,
DAB Digital Radio,
and the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, a laptop containing patient information is stolen from a hospital in Stockport, and 4 Greater Manchester soldiers are cleared of being involved in a bar brawl in Cyprus.
And Manchester City draw FC Mid-Thailand in the UEFA Cup qualifiers.
Well, this afternoon we've got a combination of sunshine and showers, top temperatures 21 Celsius.
And traffic still looking very slow indeed on the M6 southbound between junction 21A for the Croft interchange and 20 for the Lim interchange.
Good afternoon, I'm Anna Dawson. A laptop containing confidential patient information has been stolen from a hospital in Stockport. The computer holds data on more than 1,500 patients and was taken from Stepping Hill Hospital after a burglar climbed through an unlocked window. The hospital says the information's protected by a complex password system, and they've stepped up security since the theft took place. A court in Cyprus has cleared 9 British soldiers, including 4 from Greater Manchester, of starting a mass brawl in the resort of Ayia Napa. The accused from the 2nd Royal Regiment of Fusiliers was celebrating the end of their tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan when the fight broke out in February. Captain Nick Ulvert is a spokesperson for British forces in Cyprus.
On behalf of the soldiers, they're absolutely delighted. Extremely good news. It's been a long process, and very, very, very happy indeed that they've been found innocent. They were out of bounds, and they were punished quite a while ago for that offence.
But in terms of the criminal case, they've been found innocent.
And we can bring you some breaking news. Within the past few minutes, 7 men have been jailed by Manchester Crown Court for a total of 86 years and 2 months for the biggest gun conspiracy in the UK. They were distributing Russian-made handguns across the northwest. We'll have more on that in our bulletins throughout the afternoon and on Manchester Now tonight with Steve Saul. Wigan and Lee NHS Trust is investigating after a toddler was left screaming in pain when doctors failed to spot his broken collarbone. 18-month-old Charlie Robinson fell off the sofa at his home in Wigan, and his parents rushed him to the Royal Albert Edward Infirmary Hospital, but doctors sent him home claiming he was just bruised. 5 days and 3 visits later, a specialist diagnosed the fracture. His mum and dad have lodged an official complaint. £10,000 per person. That's how much it costs a hospital to treat someone who's been shot, and it's £7,000 if they've been stabbed. Researchers at Manchester University claim gun and knife crime is costing the NHS more than £3 million a year. Professor Tim Coates is from the Trauma Audit Research Network.
There is very little information about how many people are actually injured from knife crime. We're trying to define what sort of services we need to be providing in the health service to cope with this effect in society.
British Airways and Alliance and Leicester have become the latest companies to announce big drops in profits. The airlines reported first quarter profits have fallen £261 million to £37 million. Alliance and Leicester says the credit crunch has almost completely wiped out its profits in the first half of the year, making just £2 million. The husband of the British doctor who was shot dead in Antigua on the couple's honeymoon is being flown from the Caribbean island to the UK. 31-year-old Benjamin Mullany was critically injured in the shooting that killed his wife Catherine, and he remains in a coma. Brian Brooker works for a firm that specialises in flying home seriously ill patients. He said the flight would involve a delicate operation.
Any operation of bringing back a seriously injured or anybody like that in an intensive care ambulance is always a worrying time, but you don't go into these things lightly. It shouldn't be too much of a problem. We will liaise with the hospital to make sure that it's an appropriate time to transport the patient, and we would also arrange admission into the hospital. We would always do a total bed-to-bed transfer.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Will Perry.
Well, the draw for the second qualifying round of the UEFA Cup has been made this afternoon in Nyon, Switzerland, and Manchester City will play FC Midtjylland of Denmark. The first leg is the City of Manchester Stadium on the 14th of August, with the second leg being played on the 28th of August. Well, the draw for the third qualifying round of the Champions League was first. Liverpool face Standard Liège, Arsenal play Steve McLaren's FC Twente, and Rangers take on Aalborg or Modrica. Well, England have had a remarkable first session on day 3 of the third test with South Africa at Edgbaston. The tourists who, of course, started the day on 256 for 6 have been bowled out for just 314. Lancashire's Andrew Flintoff was the man of the moment yesterday, and his county teammate James Anderson has been at the heart of the attack today. He got the wickets of Boucher and Morkel. Ryan Sidebottom removed Nell and Prince. So as it stands, South Africa have a first innings lead of 83 runs. Rain clouds hovering over Birmingham as we speak, and they've taken an early lunch, so Michael Vaughan's men might just have to wait a little longer to start their second innings. And finally, Ricky Hatton's fight with Paolo Malignaggi has been officially confirmed this afternoon. It'll take place at the MGM in Las Vegas on the 22nd of November. Tickets go on sale on the 8th of August.
BBC Radio Manchester, satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, we've got an unsettled end to the week. We've got a combination of sunshine and showers. Those showers will be on and off through the afternoon. Some of them could turn out to be heavy, and there could even be a rumble of thunder around. But in between times, it's not all doom and gloom. There will be some bright or some sunny intervals, and it feels cooler and fresher today with top temperatures of 21 Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
On the subject of the ID10T computer problem, write it down, the answers are there. Kevin says, whilst we're on about misread words, my wife informed me recently there was a WW11 film on the telly. Turns out it was World War II. Living with me is getting really hard these days. Kevin, you're not alone in that. No. Anyway, good day to you. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And, of course, you can text on 07786 206 951. An unnamed text personage says, yeah, well, we got the number with a text, but we don't get the name always. We don't put it on. It doesn't matter in that respect. But the person says, on the subject of reasonable force, remember Paul, who was discoursing just before the news about the circumstances of a citizen's arrest, and the person who made the arrest was taken into custody along with the person he arrested. All right? And I said, who makes the decision? Who decides what is reasonable force? And our anonymous texter says, reasonable force, as decided by a jury. It is a problem, isn't it? It is a problem. How do we know how far we can go when we're trying to arrest somebody for an offence they're committing either against us or against another? It's very difficult indeed, very difficult. Now, I repeat what I said earlier, just because I don't want to discourage people from doing what may well be described as their civic duty, but it is very rare indeed for the person who performs, I was trying to think of the right verb, for the person who performs a citizen's arrest to end up even facing the court. That doesn't mean they won't be taken into custody, but it is very rare indeed for the person who performs a citizen's arrest to end up before the court. But how far should you go? Should you get involved? What should you do? What should you be allowed to do? The ruling is reasonable force. The government looked at it a couple of years ago. They looked at it again a few months ago, and they basically re-emphasised the legislation that was already there, saying that, yes, reasonable force is what is permitted. Nobody can predict in advance what the level of force that is. Mike in Duckingfield. Hiya, Mike.
Hey, Alan, all right?
Yes, thank you.
You have a good holiday?
Belting, sir.
Good. Right, getting back to the old gravestone stories.
Yeah.
5 or 6 years ago, just a bit of background on this, my mother-in-law and my father-in-law's graves are in Duckingfield Cemetery, in the sort of densely used part of it. Now, I know for a fact that a pal of mine who died over 20-odd years ago, his gravestone was near my mother-in-law and father-in-law's. So as we went up there on regular occasions, you know, I could see the grave. It was obviously aged because, the stone deteriorates. Then, and every fortnight or so, you'd get interrupted by a man coming round with a little strimmer cutting the grass. He'd carefully work his way around the monument, the gravestone, and then he'd cut the grass in between the rows of gravestones with a slightly bigger machine, a push, like a big push mower with an engine on. That suddenly changed about 5 or 6 years ago, and now a man sits on a little tractor and drives up and down the gravestones, cutting their grass. Very rarely do they actually trim in between the headstones, but he cuts the aisle in between the graves. One particular day I looked, and on this gravestone of my old mate's, there was a big gouge out of the stonework. And I thought, well, obviously, he's caught it with the edge of the tractor. Over the last couple of 3 years, I've noticed more and more gravestones with that steel support mechanism. So I took it on myself, just out of curiosity, to go and have a look. And most of the gravestones that were near that particular one that we're leaning over, or that one, had gouges out of the stonework. Now, I can't say that I stood there and seen the man driving and hitting the gravestone, but if anybody with a bit of sense looked at the level of the gouges, it's about where the actual cutting head of the lawnmower tractor catches. Now, I mentioned this to one of the council employees, and he said, oh, it's health and safety. We can't use the little handheld things now and the strimmers, plus the fact that it costs more to cut one row using the handheld mechanism than it did to cut 10 rows with this sit-on tractor.
Yes, it's hard to defeat the argument that part of what's going on is the authorities are trying to...
Take money.
Take money, no, I wouldn't say save money but trying to organise us into living our lives and our deaths, if you will, in an orderly fashion that accommodates them.
Well, that's it. In ordinary English, they're trying to save a few quid. Instead of having a man with an hand-pushed mower and a strimmer, it's far cheaper for one bloke to sit on a little tractor, and probably in half a day he can cut what it took 3 days for the men pushing the hand, the hand-operated machine.
The walk behind, I think they call those.
Yeah, walk behind.
Yeah.
But the annoying part about it is, it's obvious to anybody with a bit of sense that it's been done by them.
Yeah. You see,
but they won't admit that.
Well, you can't blame them.
No, I wouldn't.
When the boss gets me for things I've said on here,
you wouldn't.
I always start on the basis of I never did until he plays the tape, and then I say, well, I don't remember that. I don't know. You've edited that.
Exactly.
First port of call is always a denial. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, but the authority won't admit. They will charge you. I don't know what the fee is, but that lad on early on said it was going to cost 100 odd quid for this. And
it's a fair few bob, yeah.
It is.
But I mean, the problem here is that we're running out of space as well, and I honestly think that we as a society have got at some point to start thinking about what we do with the dead. What we do with them. Burning them's no longer acceptable because of all this nonsense about Al Gore and his global flaming warming. But we've got to do
reusing the heat now in Tameside.
Well, that's brilliant.
They want to warm the town hall up and.
Well, it could do with it, couldn't it? Dear God. But do you know what I mean? We need to address this idea. We need to address this problem we have of what to do with the dead. In some countries, I think France is one of them, you get your grave for 10 years.
Exactly.
After that, up you come. The bits are put in a bucket and they're put in a smaller place.
Well, they do that in Spain.
Yeah, and it strikes me as being eminently sensible. And it's only a cultural thing. I'm sure there are faiths right now, the left-footers or the Muslims or the Jews and some of the Christians, they're going to go by me and say, oh, no, it's God's will. No, if it's God's will, he wouldn't have sucked the life out of it. No. He'd have left it alive. It's just a lump of meat.
But
so let's deal with it.
Yeah, no, but what they're going to do now, I mean, you have a grave and it's yours for 99 years, I think. Now, I have read and I've heard people talking about it in Duckingfield Cemetery, and it, you know, whoever's listening who knows more than you and I can come back and say it if they want. They're recycling graves that have been there, and there are some that's probably 150 years old. They can reuse them after the lease of the grave has expired, because they're still being reverent. I mean, the remains have deteriorated now, haven't they? They've gone into dust, and the grave is... They could reuse it again, respectfully. I'm not being disrespectful in this, Alan. I'm saying that if we're running short of ground to bury people in, there's nothing wrong with actually reusing that piece of ground.
Mike, I agree. Let us end on an agreement. We don't get many. I'll settle for that one. Have a good one, Mike. Thank you very much indeed.
John Thompson in a world of his own.
These were the original hoodies, were monks, you see. Meadlouts. They were banned from wearing their hoodies. Hoodless habits. So it'd be like a casual monk.
Right.
Sports cars monk. You know, cap sleeve, maybe a bit of a Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen of the monk era. That's my theory. That's what it was. It's habitual. Do you get it?
John Thompson.
My granddad used to have one of those things. A little Swiss cottage. A lady would come out with a basket of flowers, and a man would come out with a bowler hat and a brolly.
Yeah.
Well, they're working overtime at the moment.
John Thompson's take on the world.
What is the world coming to?
Tomorrow morning from 11 on BBC Radio Manchester.
A very good day to you. Leon in Bolton. Hi.
Hey, Alan. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
I've been listening to you for a while now, fella. I'm glad I've got through to you finally.
Okay.
It's about this young girl that's in paper, the big girl.
Oh, God, yes. Huge is the word you're looking for.
Well, I've not seen the picture, mate, but I was just thinking, are the parents actually, could they be done for abuse? Because I think they might have ruined this kid's life. What do you think?
Well, because you phrased the question, are they going to be done for abuse, my answer would probably be no. Should they be done for abuse, I think my answer would seriously look towards yes.
Yeah.
It's diabolical. There's a photograph on the net and in the newspapers of the amount this kid eats in a day. And you know, I'm sorry, but she ain't buying that herself. Somebody's buying that.
Well, yeah, he was. I've seen a few of these programmes on TV just recently about big guys that can't get out there, big thingy, and you got husbands and wives sat around saying this, that, and the other. But as you say, he's going in one end, isn't he? And it's just too much of it going in. It's ridiculous.
Well,
mate.
absolutely. There's a photograph here. Bill's just sent to me whilst we're talking. 4 pints of milk, a ready meal, 2 loaves of bread, 2 very large, I don't know quite what size they are, but they look like 2 litre to me, 2 2-litre bottles of Coke, a cake, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 sandwiches, a packet of biscuits, 6 packets of crisps, something else which I can't quite make it out, but they look like plain biscuits, obviously those are diet biscuits, and a huge plate of chips. That's a meal. Oh, that's a day, sorry. Well, it's not allowed. She shouldn't be eating that much, and a parent should be stopping her. And as I say, if that means locking her up, then lock her up. You'll need a big room, but lock her up.
Lock them up and all, lock the parents.
Well, in the end, you've got to think about that, haven't you? They're no less cruel than if they were hitting her with sticks. Yeah. Well, you won't feel it for 10 minutes. It'd be 10 minutes before the pain got through to the nerves, for God's sake.
Getting through flap.
Indeed. Teddy Mostyn says they should tie her to the back of a Bedford rascal and have a drive round the estate for 12 hours a day. That'll shift it. But, I mean, we can laugh and joke and all that. The poor kid's having a horrible life.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We can say what about the kid, and we can call her names, and we can say we can lock her in rooms and this, that, and the other, but she's going to go through hell now, isn't she, over the next few years.
Yeah, she is. Well, assuming she gets a few years out of it.
Oh, yeah. She'll be getting money for the story, won't they?
Well, we shouldn't spend it on cake. But I've got my suspicions. Good on you, Leon.
All right, thanks.
Have a good day, mate. 0161 228 2255. Julie in Manchester said, I thought your rant yesterday about the orange-faced harridans in Kendals was hilarious. Yeah, we'll see what their lawyers think. Anyway, further to the idea of the invention of body odour in the 1950s, remember I mentioned that. Body odour was invented by Lifebuoy, by Unilever in the 1950s. Before that, we all just got on with smelling, and then we were told it was offensive. Crazy. Anyway, Julie says, I am in strong wonderment about underarm hair and leg hair. As a woman, for some reason, I'm expected to shave this naturally occurring hair growth off. Hair in armpits does not, in itself, create or make worse sweat. My male partner's armpits are hairy, clean, and virtually odourless. As far as I'm aware, my legs do not sweat, so why shave either of these areas? At some point, it was decided that women shouldn't have hair in these areas, and frankly, why? She says. Obviously, there's no law against unshaved armpits and unshaved legs for women. But there might as well be. People often respond to a bit of hair growth as though the woman were the creature from the Black Lagoon. Clearly, it's all about the pressure on women to look like Barbies rather than humans. But Alan, I want to be human, not a doll. I shave me armpits, and I'm baffled whilst doing so. Julie, don't go anywhere near Brazil, love. It's 1:20 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines with Anna Dawson.
7 men have been jailed in Manchester for a total of 86 years for the biggest gun conspiracy in the UK. They were distributing Russian-made handguns across the northwest. A laptop containing confidential information on 1,500 patients has been stolen from Stepping Hill Hospital in Stockport. A burglar took it after climbing through an unlocked window. And a court in Cyprus has cleared 9 British soldiers, including 4 from Greater Manchester, are starting a mass brawl in the resort of Iron Upper. Manchester's weather, a mix of sunshine and showers, highs of 21 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
On the M6, we have congestion in both directions at the Croft Interchange, junction 21A. Firstly, on the northbound side, there's a lane closed, queuing traffic between 21A at Croft and 22 at Newton and Willows because of an accident involving several vehicles. Lane 1 closed there. And slow traffic on the southbound side between the Croft Interchange at 21A and junction 19 for Knutsford. John Dalton Street in Manchester itself, congestion remains between Deansgate and Cross Street because of the water main work that's going on through there. And also on Mount Street, traffic congestion in between Peter Street and John Dalton Street, again for that same water main work. If you spot any problems and you want to update us, please call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Nick Arkell.
2020 traffic means you get an update every 20 minutes through the day.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Just after 1:20, back to the story of, back to Paul's case about the citizen's arrest chap who eventually got took into custody with the person he arrested. As we understand it, he was then allowed to go free, but he was arrested. He was taken into custody. David in Altrincham says, I think that the ambiguity over what constitutes reasonable force is the reason why people turn the other cheek when offences are witnessed. Well, you're right. I'm absolutely convinced of it, David. Some people don't because they don't care. Some people don't because they are afraid, and that's perfectly reasonable. And others don't because they're afraid not of the consequences, the physical consequences of getting involved, and instead of sorting it out, getting yourself a good hiding. But other people are concerned that if they do get involved, they'll end up doing a night in the cell at best. Which is I don't know the solution to it, but yeah, it's a perfectly reasonable fear. Will in Winsford, are you, Will?
Hi, Alan.
What can we do for you?
Well, I've got a bit of opinion on this reasonable force and the solutions for it.
Okay.
Last week I went to the Crown Court just to watch. I've got to think about men's and wigs and gowns.
And the Crown Court's interesting. It's fairly tedious in that it takes a long time, but it's fascinating, yeah.
It was a very short case, and it was about 2 blokes. One was a director of a company, and one was a manager. I won't tell you what the job was because it might give it away. But suffice it to say, they had a meeting, and a scuffle broke out, and one fella got a broken nose, and the other fella was battered. They were 2 big fellas, you see. But the judge, I was waiting for this wimpish judge to do his business, do the business, but he was a very reasonable judge. who kept the barristers in their place very, very well and got rid of all the piffle and all the stuff goes with it. And in the end, I thought did a good job of sorting out what was the truth and what was relevant, rather, and what was irrelevant. And in the end, the guy that was up in the dock was supposed to be the aggressor. He was found not guilty with insufficient evidence because it was a question of who started it. And it couldn't be proven who actually threw the first punch in the end of it. So I would imagine that the people to make these decisions about reasonable force is, shall we say, if you're talking about someone who's been battered, the victim would probably see, in the case of an attack, and someone attack the attacker to defend the victim, if you like, the victim probably thought, well, I've been saved here, and that person did that to save me. And that would be relevant evidence, I would have thought.
Well, the problem is that the judge, the jury, even the lawyers, even the coppers, if there were any involved, weren't there.
No, exactly.
And you've just got one person saying X, the other person saying Y. The job of the jury, as you will have heard explained by the judge, the job of the jury is to decide who they would rather believe.
Exactly. It's on the basis of probability.
Well, they've got to be... They've not just got to believe it, they've got to believe it beyond reasonable doubt.
Yes.
And that's the requirement in the criminal courts. And it's not easy.
Oh, no, but there has to be a decision made.
Well, there has to be a decision on the grounds... yes, there has to be a decision, but they don't have to decide that either one of them was... if you like, started the fight, either one of them is guilty of an offence. They can say, we cannot decide in either case, therefore, not guilty is recorded, because we cannot be sure of who is guilty, and the benefit of the doubt has to go to not guilty.
The point with in this case, it was two men, and both of them were in a closed environment, so there's only one against the other. But where you've got some sort of witness who says, well, I was doing my shopping, I was attacked by a ruffian. Another ruffian saved me from the first ruffian, and I'm ever so grateful to the second ruffian.
Well, quite, yes.
But the biggest ruffian, the offender, if he had not attacked me, he wouldn't have been attacked by the second ruffian.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is balmy. What did the court decide in that case?
Well, the jury came back and said, well, nothing can be proved.
Yeah, in other words, we can't decide. Well, what the jury decided was, we cannot decide which case we believe, the prosecution's or the defence's. We can't decide, and there the doubt has to go to the defence, always.
Exactly.
It's a nightmare. You
Absolutely.
said, you did suggest at the outset, Will, and I'm fascinated by this, that you said I might even have a solution.
Well, the solution is that we are now in the situation where you can't defend yourself beyond reasonable doubt. And as you say, what is reasonable doubt? Now, if someone came into my property, the answer should be you have a free license to do whatever you want to do.
Well, there are a number of occasions in the United States of America where that has gone ghastly wrong. Absolutely terribly wrong. The worst one I read, and it was only about 6 months ago, where a man heard a noise downstairs, went downstairs, saw somebody who'd obviously broken in through the window, shot him dead, and 10 days later buried his son.
Good point.
I'm sure he felt great. Sure, I have my right to use my weapon.
Yeah.
And indeed, I might get some help with funeral. You see, if you give people carte blanche, it's a bugger of a job to stop them using it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think I also tried to allude to the fact that somebody has to make a decision. And if all the judges were like the one I witnessed, instead of some of these idiots we see in the paper...
Well, hang on a minute. I'm all in favour of attacking judges. I really, really am. They deserve it and they're well paid. And my mate's a judge and, frankly, he deserves attacking from time to time. But the reality is they don't decide the facts. That's you and me. That's the jury.
Oh, yes, but the point being is, when the judge makes his summing up and his deliberations, if he does it properly and objectively, and outlines the case as it should be given, the jury has a fair idea of which way they should be looking at.
Well, if the judge does that, and it's not fair, if he does imply what they should decide, there is an automatic right to a retrial. And his the defence will sit there and listen, and indeed will read exactly what the judge says, and will then immediately go into a retrial.
Yes, but what he did was...
Not immediately, but they will immediately submit for a retrial.
He took all... what I'm saying, he took the evidence, all the bits of actual evidence, what was said, what was done in evidence, and took away all the other stuff that the barristers put into the mix, if you know what I mean.
Yes, he distilled it to the straightforward facts of the... These are the facts of the case.
Yeah.
If you believe this, as presented by the prosecution, you must find the man guilty. If you believe this, as presented by the defence, you must find the man not guilty. If you cannot decide, then we must record a not guilty verdict. That's the general summing up process.
Had there been one witness, then of course, and that's the point, is about who saw what. You know.
Well, again, it comes down to, had there been a witness? Well, we still have to say, yes, there might have been a witness, and if there was a witness, great, but we still have to go with, it isn't two say this and one says that, two wins. It comes down to the believability.
Yes. And we do have we can't carry guns and we can't carry knives. We can't carry weapons, per se. I've got an opinion about knives, but that's a different thing. But if you saw someone being mugged, then I would think you would use whatever you could with your own stature. But I'm not very strong. I've been quite poorly at one time, so I've no strength. But if I could hit somebody with anything to defend myself or to defend my own, I'd just say with whatever was handy.
Well, I mean, and if it was handy, you would probably not be guilty of an offence.
Yes.
But if you put it there so it could be handy...
Yes.
That's an offence.
Exactly.
Good to talk to you, Will.
And you.
Have a good day, mate. 01612282225, just after 1:30. Alex in Wigan, hiya.
Hiya.
What have you got for us, Alexa?
Well, you're talking about what to do with a dead body?
Yeah.
Well, then everybody can do what I do. I don't want to be burnt because I'm hot already. I don't get any hotter.
Okay.
I don't want to go 6 foot under because I won't be able to get my breath. So... I have signed a contract with Liverpool University Medical Centre.
Yeah.
And when I snuff it, they come and get the body and use it for medical research.
Well, first of all, well done you, first of all. Well done you. But it isn't guaranteed that they will.
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. It's not guaranteed that they will.
Oh, I shall get onto them as soon as I finish talking to you.
But because, A, they don't know where you're going to be.
Right.
I mean, unless you've got something planned we don't know about. They don't know where you're going to be. They don't know whether it'll be just imagine if you were on holiday in the Outer Hebrides and you snuffed it. They might think, well, it's not worth the money.
Well, yeah, maybe. I never
Or if you snuffed it, you were on New York in holiday. You ain't going to pay for fly a dead body back from New York.
Right.
So it's not guaranteed. So that's the first thing.
Oh.
The second thing is you might die of some horrible lurgy, and they'll be really, really interested in your body. There again, you just might not wake up one morning and you think, well, you know, it'll be all right for the surgeons to practice on, but otherwise, what use is it? They're right picky, you know.
Oh, you have now. I thought I had it all sorted.
There you are. You see, I've ruined your life.
You ruined my day.
My own life has not been in vain, but I've ruined yours.
Okay. But I'll get on to him.
You get on to him and say, you take it under any circumstance or you're not having it at all.
I will.
It's going in the pies.
Right.
All right.
Thanks for that information.
Good on you. Bye-bye now. But you can donate your body to medical research. They don't want them all, otherwise, what are they going to do with 55 million bodies? That's going to be a lot of cutting up, isn't it? And they do. I mean, some of the medical research, some of it isn't to find cures for diseases yet discovered or even yet resolved. Some of it is just, and there's nothing wrong with this, in fact I think it's absolutely admirable, but some of it is just for surgeons to practice upon. Well, they've got to practice somewhere, and there's not there's no substitute for the real thing. None whatsoever. So it's all very well doing it on the telly and all that cable, but eventually, a surgeon, a would-be surgeon, has got to get hold of a scalpel and cut something open. Absolutely. How else are they going to learn? So they do use it for that. There are other things they do with them as well, but that's probably not... Lunchtime's probably not the best time to discuss it. But yes, they do indeed want bodies. They don't want them all. They can't deal with 55 million. But even when they've finished with them, it hasn't disappeared. It's not gone. What do they do with it? So, OK, the one that gets used by the surgeon, or the trainee surgeons, they cut it up, they maul about with it, they roam about, they take the kidneys out, they put them back in as if it's a transplant. They do all that, same with the hearts and all that. All gets done, but at the end, it's still a body. Something's still got to be done with it. What do they do with it? Well, that's it. 0161 228 2255. Philip in Reddish. Hiya, mate. Hello, Philip. Oh, Philip's talking to someone.
Right.
And that someone's not me. Are you joining in or what?
Alan.
Hello.
Listen, what happened?
I was listening. You weren't saying anything.
Oh, right.
It's all right. Go on.
What it is, we installed a package on the 9th of July 2008, that was about a month ago, for £26 from a TV thing, do you understand, which had broadband and telephone. OK? We then decided to get a £10 package for the sport, which made it £34 exactly. So we got a bill for that, and that was normal, that was OK. And that's what we said it would be, £34. That's what it was advertised at, £34. And we got the statement, and now they're trying to charge us now £46. So we asked why. We got on the phone to them today, and there's all these extras that's on it. But we actually we've got a different statement here saying it was actually £34. It was advertised in the paper for £34, and they've changed it to £46.
OK. The £34, you seemed to be telling me earlier, didn't involve the sport.
No, it involved the sport.
OK.
It was £26.
Well, just...
and it was £34.
Hang on, you're throwing numbers at me. I'm going in a whir now because I'm a bit slow with numbers.
All right.
And words, as it happens. And colour. I'm not good on colours either, but music's rubbish. Anyway, so originally, tell me what you originally signed up for and had installed. The monthly payment.
It was broadband.
No, just tell me how much.
Altogether, we got everything in and got a bill.
No, the answer's a number. How much?
34 quid.
34 quid, right.
Yeah.
So you agreed a package that was 34 quid.
Exactly, £34.
Yeah. Did you then change it in any way?
No.
You didn't say, I want this as well, I don't want that, I do want this, I don't want that, I don't want this. You just said 34 quid, that's it.
That was a total, yeah.
Now, hang on. What were you going to get provided, according to the advertisement, what were you going to get provided for the 34 quid?
Well, what happened...
You can name them. We all know the company, so there's no sense faffing about here. We all know the company. So what were you going to get?
Right, it was TV, Sky TV, which was sport.
Well, no, Sky TV, which was sport, they're different. So
No, it's TV entertainment.
So you got Sky One?
Yeah, entertainment mix.
Right.
Sky Broadband.
And
Sky TV Talk Unlimited.
Right.
Right.
And what sports package was involved in that? Because they've got about...
That was £26, Alan. Right?
No. I want to know what they were going to give you for £34.
Right. Also, and the sports.
Well, what do you mean, and the sports? There are a variety of sports packages with Sky. Some of them are free within the overall package. Right. Some of them cost more.
Right. We got the 1, 2, 3 sports.
When you say you got them, are you telling me that the advertisement included those?
No.
No.
We pay extra for them.
So when I said to you, you then got in touch with them and organised other things, and you said, no, I didn't. What you really meant to say was, yes, I did.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Right, because it throws me when you say no and you mean yes.
Yeah.
I'm buggered.
Okay, Alan, what I'm saying
Right.
to you, well, actually, I didn't organise it, my wife did, but...
Well, but Sky won't take any cognizance of that. I can only go on what you tell me.
Okay, Alan.
So, you agreed a package of 34 quid.
Exactly, yeah.
Then you bought something else.
No, that was it.
Right, so that question has now been answered no, yes, and no.
No, we bought...
No, it has. That question has been answered that way. It may not have meant to have been, but it has been.
No, altogether, Alan, with all the package, everything we got, with the sports, the TV, and all the telephone, everything came to £34.
Right.
Everything.
Remember my question.
Yep.
The £34, what was included? You gave me a list. I then said, what sports did that include? And you told me. You then told me you agreed to have some other sports.
Yeah, well, that was...
Well, you're confused.
No.
Now, I am then. It's all my fault. But
Well, I'll tell you exactly what I've got. I got the package for £26. And
where did that come... Right, listen, what's going on here is you're being told what to say by someone... And I'm getting... No, I've not got time to talk to your wife now. I've not got time to talk to you, love. You're going to have to ring me back on Monday. It's 20 to 2. BBC GMR News headlines with Faye Rusco.
7 men have been jailed by Manchester Crown Court for a total of 86 years and 2 months for the biggest gun conspiracy in the UK. They were distributing Russian-made handguns across the northwest. A man's been attacked by a gang of masked men who fired flames from an aerosol can at him in Manchester. And a laptop containing confidential patient information has been stolen from Stepping Hill Hospital in Stockport. Manchester's weather, a mix of sunshine and showers, highs of 21 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Delays continue on the M6 in Cheshire. Firstly, on the northbound side, between junction 21A at the Croft Interchange and 22 at Newton Le Willows. Queuing traffic because of an accident that is now on the hard shoulder. All lanes have been reopened, but only recently. Lane 1 was closed until about 10 minutes ago. The M6 southbound, slow traffic between 21A at Croft and 19 at Knutsford. No accidents or incidents on that side, though. And John Dalton Street and Mount Street in Manchester city centre, they're both quite heavy because of the roadworks on Deansgate, the water main work we got there, and the resultant closure. If you want to update us, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Nick Arkell.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports.
And we start with the draw for the UEFA Cup second qualifying round. Manchester City will face MC Midtjylland of Denmark. The game will be played at home first of all. That's on Thursday the 14th of August, with the second leg out in Denmark on the 28th of August. I've been speaking just a few moments ago to Manchester City's General Secretary Bernard Halford, who's been in Neon for the draw. And this is what he had to tell us straight after the draw was made.
In existence since 1999, I think. They won this first qualifying round 10-1 on aggregate because they won 6-1 away at Bangor. We've met the manager here. They're looking forward to the game very, very much. The capacity of the stadium is 10,000. So they're looking at what arrangements they can make, obviously, for tickets for us. So we'll be having further discussions. I think they'll be paying us a visit next week, and I'll be looking for what arrangements our manager will want to do to go and look at their team.
The first leg's at the City of Manchester and the second leg's over there. That's right, isn't it?
That's correct. 14th and 28th. We will be kicking off at 7:45 on the 14th. We'll sort ticket arrangements out to which will be announced right after the weekend, I would say. So, it's moving along, and it's tremendous to be in this competition. I mean, it's it's got more clubs in it than the other European competition, the Champions League, and it's quite exciting. We're back in Europe, obviously, for the fans. Trip to Denmark, which I would think looks as though it's going to be easier to get to than the Faroe Isles. As far as the difficulties that we encountered, of course, with travel and cost there. So hopefully that's a country that some of our supporters will want to visit. The major possible problem may be the number of tickets that we can get. because they get an average crowd of 9,000. So they're looking at that and thinking about that. We'll have further discussions over the weekend, or certainly by Monday.
And of course we'll keep you posted as the story of the ticket availability is made clear. But FC Midtjylland of Denmark is a team that City will face home first on the 14th of August, which is a Thursday, and then away on the 28th. The draw for the third qualifying round of the Champions League, of course, took place today as well. Liverpool will face Standard Liège, Arsenal play Steve McLaren's FC 20 of Holland, and Rangers take on Aalborg or Madrika. All three of the British teams are at home in the second leg. Bolton's Johan Elmander made his long-awaited debut in a friendly with Wolves last night. It was a replacement for the cancelled game at Tranmere. Remember, that was washed out with the waterlogged pitch. And the game finished 1-1. The Swedish midfielder is set to feature again this evening as Wanderers continue their preparations for the new season at Doncaster. Turning to the cricket now, and England finally bowled South Africa out a little earlier on today. So starting their fight back, I'll give you the score on that in just a second. Ricky Hatton's fight with Paolo Magliaghi has been officially confirmed this afternoon. It'll take place at the MGM in Las Vegas on the 22nd of November. Tickets go on sale on the 8th of August. England then 28 for 1 in their second innings. South Africa bowled out for 314. The man to go was Alistair Cook for 9 this morning. Andrew Strauss still at the crease on 10. In Rugby League, Wigan take on Hull at the JJB this evening. The Warriors are without the suspended duo of Gareth Hock and Michael McLaurin. We'll have commentary at Manchester Sports from 7 o'clock. And Manchester Phoenix player coach Tony Hand has announced that he will carry on playing this season. Hand will be 41 later this month and says the bottom line is, I still love playing the game and I believe I can still contribute.
This is the Northwest's biggest sports station. This is BBC Radio Manchester. No one covers more of Manchester sports.
Oh, that is a most fantastic catch!
Football, rugby league, rugby union, boxing, speedway, cricket, athletics, ice hockey. The all-new Manchester Sports. Coming soon to the Northwest's biggest sports station. BBC Radio Manchester.
That's us, that. Despite what I've said twice in the past week. It's just... it's the years what does it. It's just gone 1:45. Adrian in Salford. Philip and Mrs. Philip. I didn't catch your name. I was a bit sharp with you. It serves you right, but I was. I didn't catch your name, Mrs. Philip. But anyway... I couldn't make head or tail of it, frankly. If you want to ring me back on Monday, we'll work our way through it, but work out what you're going to say, and we'll see if we can get through there. But this, Adrian's much nicer than I, but so is everybody else. Adrian in Salford says thus, related to your Sky TV package, the first bill, when you set it up, in other words, the first bill is usually more than the regular monthly charge, because the company will charge a month in advance plus the week or two since the installation was made, but before the bill is produced. In other words, it might appear to be an extra charge. In other words, they're charging you in the first one. If I read Adrian's email correctly, and I think I do, the first payment isn't for a month, it's for 6 weeks. So you need to find out what the regular direct debit will be, and if that provides the answer to your problem, then fantastic. If it doesn't, as I say, talk to me on Monday and we'll see if we can. Ring us fairly early on Monday, because it might take the 2 hours, but ring us fairly early on Monday and we'll work our way through it as best we can. I mentioned windfall taxes earlier, or the proposed by some windfall tax. John in Poynton. A windfall tax on the oil companies will do nothing for the people who are struggling to pay their fuel bills, because the majority of the money raised would just be used to prop up this bankrupt government. If they had ever had an energy policy, they would have insisted that these companies had sufficient storage facilities to smooth out fluctuating price levels. Britain has sufficient storage for about 2 weeks. France has 3 months. The French government control the levels of price rises the fuel companies can impose, so the fuel companies make up the shortfall by raising higher prices in the UK, while our inactive government sits wringing its hands and bleating on about global forces. If this government was really interested in the price the poor pay for energy, they could, at a stroke, take VAT off fuel and reduce the 68 pence per litre they take in fuel tax. This would reduce public expenditure somewhat, but so what? It's generally accepted that a huge amount of this has been wasted anyway. John in Poynton, you're slightly wrong in principle, and that is they can't take VAT off fuel. They cannot. They can reduce the rate charged, and they could reduce it to 1% rather than the current, I think it's 5% in electricity bills, isn't it? I don't remember. But they can't remove it completely. Once an item, all items are VAT rated. Some of them are rated at 0, not many. But once you move from 0 to a positive rating, you can't return to 0. Those are the rules laid down by all the agreed countries in the European Union. So those are the rules. But they could reduce it. They could change it downwards. But they can't remove it or change it to 0. Dear Alan, no wonder your last caller was confused. My rough calculation is that he's spending something like £530 a year on television. His brain, what is left of it, must be scrambled. He should use the money for gas and electricity. Give up the telly and get a life. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, Sean's not got a telly. I have, and I pay Sky. It's touching, by the time you've bought a film or a boxing match or whatever, it's touching 50 quid a month, 600 quid a year. And people whine about the licence fee. What a bunch of cretins, they can't do sums. Les in Cheadle-Hulme. Hiya, Les.
Hi, Alan.
What have you got?
It's about that lady that was on about that she didn't want to go because she was already hot, and she didn't want to go underneath because she couldn't breathe.
Yeah, I think she said warm rather than hot. It means something entirely different to the young, but do go on.
Yeah. Well, my wife, before she died, gave her body to the medical school in Manchester.
Excellent.
And they take it for 2 years.
Yeah.
And before they take it, you ring up and tell them the body's there, but they say, we'll ring you back.
Yeah.
And they ring you back, and my son-in-law said, what the hell are you ringing us back for? Well, he said, we get so many hoax calls, we have to make sure it's there.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
But when the 2 years are up, you get a marvellous send-off from the medical.
Oh, so they do a funeral later.
They do a complete funeral after 2 years. The flowers, the hearse, everything, the minister, the lot.
Yeah.
And it's a great feeling when you know.
Really?
That's all I can say.
But that really brings us back to the lady. I'm trying to find out who it was. I'm just looking at it. It was Alexa in Wigan.
Yeah.
And she said she's donated hers to Liverpool University. Well, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
But we broached, or this subject got broached, as it were, because we were wondering about how do we deal with the whole disposal of bodies. But of course that won't help. It'll delay it by 2 years, but
yes,
we're back to the problem of what do we do with the corpse.
Yeah. Well, when they send it you, they say, do you want the burial or do you want the cremation?
Yeah.
And whatever you want, then it's there for you.
You see, I think I'd want not to know any more about it.
Me?
You know, if one of my lot decided that they were going to donate the body, one of the ones I care about, you don't care about them all, do you?
No,
one of the ones I care about decided that they were giving their body to medical research, then fine, and I would honour that, because I don't actually care what happens to bodies.
Yeah.
And I would say, that's okay, well, you, the university, take it away by all means. But when you're finished with it, don't be bothering me. I don't want a funeral in 2 years' time, or a memorial, and it just put the thing in the river. I'm not bothered.
It is a bit of a shock when they come and they ring and tell you, or they write a letter and say,
so
right,
can you do the deal and say, look, I don't want it, dispose of it any way you feel like, burn it, bury it, do what you like, I want nothing more to do with it.
Well, I have no idea, because my wife made all the arrangements.
Well, indeed, yeah.
She even rang them up after she'd had a mastectomy and said, do you still want me? Because even though I've only got one of them. She said, certainly, yes.
In fact, there's a bit you can have now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good on you, mate.
Okay,
good on you.
thanks.
Cheers, Les.
Bye-bye.
161 228 2255. If you want to join us, you will, of course, be welcome, because you're always welcome. Yeah. I know that sounds patronising. It's meant to. This is an old one. It's terrible. I hate it when I get old jokes, because it makes me think I belong on Wow. I know, with Eamon and Jimmy. I know. Well, it's not Eamon and Jimmy this Sunday. Who is it? They got Thompson out of bed. Yeah, it's Eamon O'Neill No, it's not. It's Jimmy. Yeah, Eamon's skiving off. It's Jimmy Wag and John Thompson on Sunday morning. And John Thompson's doing his Saturday morning bit tomorrow as well. As indeed am I. Not doing his, doing mine. 6 till 9. That rhymed. I'm sorry. Anyway, I started telling an old joke. It comes from either Pam or Pete, or maybe they did alternate letters and they both sent it. But as you, like my wife, had her chequebook and cards stolen, after 3 days she said, "Are you not going to report the cards that have been stolen?" And I said, "No. The amount they're spending is a lot less than you did." I know. Listen out for it Sunday morning. It'll be there. If the Tory government hadn't flogged off our national fuel industries to the greedy beggars that brought the shares, we probably wouldn't be in the mess we are now. In short, if you see Sid, tell him I want me gas back. That's Malcolm in Offerton. Yeah, do you remember? Tell Sid. Tell Sid you can steal the assets. Yeah. 0161 228 2255. If you've something to say, that's fine by me. Why has he sent that to me? Hello there. My name is and I'm an unsigned songwriter. How can you write unsigned songs? It's weird, is that? Anyway, I was wondering if there was any possibility of you playing them on the radio. Think you ought to tune in once or twice, mate. You're wasting your time with me. Mind you, I play records on a Saturday. I don't pick them. I have nothing to do with them. I try to pretend they're not there. In fact, if we had microphones all over the building, when the music's on, you'd hear splashing. Yeah. Henry in Pressbury. He says... I've lost it now. Oh, dear God. What happened there? Do you know, I'm going to get the hang of these computers one day. Nah. Henry in Pressbury says, I went to Ashton-under-Lyne last week to see if the farmers' market was open. You should have seen the hordes of obese women fighting to get in the fish and chip shop on the main shopping arcade. You'd have thought rationing from World War II had just ended to see them stuffing the grub in their mouths. This scene was replicated at Greggs, Burger King and McDonald's, with those obese women and girls waddling out of these establishments in their national dress of three-quarter leggings, ankle chains and filthy trainers. It must be purgatory for them on Sundays with all the fast food outlets closed. Actually, the 3 you mentioned, 2 of them are open on Sundays. Anyway, fast food outlets closed and what their children eat, heaven knows. It's not only the women who are stuffing their faces with pasties and sausage rolls, but babies who don't look old enough to be weaned are also lying in these women's buggies, suckling on sausage rolls, and it's normally a double buggy the size of an handcart they now use to batter their way to the grub with. I'm afraid fat women are now here to stay, because they just don't know any better nowadays. It's not only Ashton where you'll see this behaviour, it happens anywhere at any time, and I'm sure you'll agree. Why people waste their money on reports like this beats me, when anyone can see the behaviour for themselves any time. Well, I don't know whether it's a waste of money reporting. I thought knowledge was king. The UK has 3 rates of VAT. 0, 5%, and 17.5%. And NH in Tameside says VAT cannot be reduced below 5% for domestic fuel. So there, he appears to know. And John says it's all your fault. Well, there's a lot say that, but I'm never one of them. He's from Diss in Norfolk. Yeah, if you go to Diss, are you well and truly dissed? Are you even dissed as a newt? Anyway, this is what he says. I'm sitting in my lorry at Warrington, waiting to load, listening to you. And you've prompted me to look at that fat bird's picture on the internet. The only thing is, it's a very small picture. There is a button I can click, but the button's marked enlarged. And the only thing is, my laptop's only got a 15-inch screen, and I'm a bit scared. What should I do? He says, I don't mind if it doesn't fit on the screen, but if I press enlarge, will it set my airbag off? You shouldn't laugh. It depends on whether you press it fast or not. Oh, dear, dear, dear. And on the subject of the bloke that said, will you play me records if I send them to you? he's not really thought it through. I must congratulate Kim, who's, I won't tell you where he's from, but it's a company. And he said, I'm organising the UK's first National Dog Adoption Month. I'm launching it tomorrow, and I'm wondering whether you could give me some publicity. Yeah, I think you ought to have had a listen first. You don't adopt dogs. You put a bullet through their heads, for God's sake. Stop begging about and get the skins into gloves. See you tomorrow on Monday. Ta-da!
This is John Thompson, putting the world to rights and having a few laughs. Saturdays, 11 till 1 on